Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome. My name is Pat Walsh. I am the Director of the Planning and Development Department for the City of Houston. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you tonight to this meeting about developing design guidelines in some of our historic districts in Houston. I want to just first of all, thank all of you for being here tonight. I think it just is a tremendous reflection of how important this is and how engaged all of you are in making your communities better. And I just want to thank all of you for your time. I'm going to make a few opening remarks and then I'm going to turn it over to Steph McDougall, also with the city, who is going to be kind of walking you through the rest of the evening. Getting these historic guidelines right is so important. And that's why the city has really committed this extensive effort to making sure we get it right. We know that we need a predictable process for our customers in our historic districts, and you guys are our customers as members of our community. We need it for our historical commission, and we need it for staff. All of us need to be on the same page in understanding what are the types of improvements that should be allowed and supported in our historic districts. And we know that we have so much activity going on in the Heights area that we have focused in the number of districts in the Heights area. That's where our low-hanging fruit is, and that's where we're going to start with our efforts, and that's why you're here tonight. We do have a number of staff here tonight. I just want to ask that if you're a member of staff here at the City of Houston, I just want you to, if you could stand and you could raise your hand, make yourself visible. I want to thank all of you. I think some number may have stepped out, but we do have probably about seven or eight staff members here, and I want to thank all of our members of the City of Houston staff for being here tonight. Tonight is really about listening. We've got a number of exercises we're going to be walking you through. We know we need to get this right, and key to getting this right is to understand the interests of the community. So we're going to be doing a lot of listening and making sure that you can provide us your thoughts on what those interests are. So once again, thank you very much to all of you for being here. And I'm going to turn it over now to Steph McDougall, who's going to kind of walk you through a lot of the details.
Thank you, Patrick. Well, welcome everyone. It's good to see everyone. I've had the pleasure of meeting many of you already, and I look forward to getting to know the rest of you during this project. I'm the project manager for the Historic District Design Guidelines, and I have been working with the city for almost a year now on this project. I'm so excited to have with us tonight Nori Winter from Winter & Company, and Julie Husband, who's back at the back, also from Winter & Company, our Fearless Design Guidelines consultants, who has been on the job since mid-May and have been spending a tremendous amount of time collecting and analyzing data for our presentation tonight. I want to cover a couple of housekeeping issues. First of all, if you need to step out to the restroom, it is right in this hall that's just next to us. If you go out this door and look to your right, you'll see a sign that says HG, and it's in that hall. Please, if you have not silenced your cell phones, please do that now. We'd appreciate that. We can all check. It doesn't hurt to check. Also, we are going to have a very limited amount of time for the presentation and exercises tonight. So we're going to hold our questions to the end if we have time. But I want to make sure that we capture and are able to answer all of your questions. So on your table, you will see blue pieces of paper. There should be enough for everybody at your table. And if you will please write your name and what district you're in, how I can contact you on a piece of paper, blue paper, and write down all your questions and comments during the meeting. I'll collect those. At the end, we'll take questions if we have time. We're already running a little late, and we have to be out of this building no later than 9, so I'm going to be shooing you all out no later than 8:30. But if you could just get your questions and comments on the blue sheets with your name and contact information, that would be super, and I'll pick those up at the end. All right, I think that's all of the housekeeping for us for this evening. You will notice that we do have 2 Intrepid camera operators here with us tonight from HTV. Daryl is in the back, and Chris is over here to my left. They're going to be capturing this production for us to put on the web after it's edited. So we're very lucky to have them. And you'll be able to see the meeting and tell your friends who were not able to come to the meeting that they can watch it at their convenience, because we know a lot of people can't come to a weeknight meeting. All right, with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Noré.
Thank you, Steph. And thank you for all the hard work you've put in helping us get ready for it this evening. A couple of other little housekeeping things to let you know about. One is there won't be a break because of the short timing. It's all informal. You're on your own. Just do it as you need. We're going to be asking you to work fast on several exercises. Be patient if you don't feel you have enough time. We really this evening want to have quick top-of-mind responses and thinking. Everything will be posted. All the activities you work on this evening and this presentation will be posted on the website, on the city's website, and you will be able to add additional thoughts via the website and or of course directly sending email to Steph. So it's not that this will be your only time. And really what you're doing tonight is helping us get ready for a second workshop in early December, where this will help us figure out what works, what kinds of activities are effective in being able to communicate ideas, and we'll be able to refine things a little bit better. The staff members that Pat mentioned earlier will be circulating to help answer questions if you get stuck about something. But if you're not clear about what the instructions are, make it up. Because really we just want you to be thinking, having some fun, giving us your ideas. And so I wouldn't worry too much about following the rules exactly. You can color outside the lines if you need to. For some of you, and Pat mentioned the Heights District's representatives, some of this material may be familiar, but for the other historic districts who are represented here tonight, it may be new. And so there may be a little bit of repetition for some people. Please be patient with us. We want to be certain everyone has an opportunity to have the same basis of understanding. Winter & Company is a consulting company specializing in writing design guidelines for communities and in dealing with historic preservation and zoning regulations related to neighborhood character. We work all over the country. We're based in Boulder, Colorado, and we in Texas have written design guidelines for Galveston, for San Antonio, for Plano, for Waxahachie, for Austin. I'm trying to remember Georgetown. Some people will be insulted if I'm left them out. But in any case, we've had the honor and the pleasure of working here a lot, and we bring a national perspective to the process. That said, we know that it has to be tailored to the community, and that means socially, politically, economically, and of course physically in terms of the resources, the built environment that the community values and that has been designated here as historic districts. The project has been organized into phases, and this is partially in response to the priorities set by City Council. That doesn't mean the other districts are less important. We just have to respond to Council quickly with respect to developing design guidelines for the Heights District. We wanted to invite everyone that is involved in our stage 1 this evening. And so that includes, in addition to the 3 Houston Heights districts, Nor Hill, Old 6th Ward, Woodland Heights, and Freeland. We will have a surge after this workshop to focus a lot on the Heights. We will then, as soon as we get that to a certain stage of development, pick up with more of our phase 1 communities, and you'll be hearing more about us. And then lurking in the background, there's a later phase even to address Glenbrook Valley and the Main Street Market Square historic districts. So those are all a part of this project, but because of the phasing, things may get a little confusing to some people. So we just wanted you to understand that. Geographically, these ones, the districts that are shown here on the map with the stars are those that are part of this process. And I'm sure most of you know where those districts are, but it is often a surprise sometimes for some people to learn that they are literally in a historic district or that there's another historic district nearby. And again, this is information that is available on the web if you wanted to know more about that. Stephanie mentioned that we have been conducting a lot of research already, a lot of factual data analysis. What you're bringing to it now is the human factor in terms of what that means on the street to you. But we've been reviewing the preservation ordinance, which of course is the starting point for a lot of the design standards and guidelines that exist. We've also been doing a lot about looking at some of the other regulations like the minimum lot size and restrictive covenants that occur in some of the neighborhoods, as well as the city's preservation manual. So we have a working knowledge of those materials, but we're still learning much more about them. Those are all available in one form or another on the city's website, particularly those pieces that are relevant directly to historic preservation, the ordinance, and the preservation manual. The process I kind of alluded to is in these steps. As I mentioned, we've been doing analysis. We're now on a second piece of that where we've been doing something called classifying typologies. I'm going to tell you more about that in a minute. The big posters on your table are our first cut at what we are calling typologies, and I'll explain that. The first workshop is the one with the red box. That's us tonight, folks. And that's where we're helping to refine some discussions about issues for the districts, what our goals are, and what our first impressions are about character and compatibility. There will be a second workshop, and again, it'll be the very 1st of December, where we'll begin to drill down a little bit more specifically. After that, there will be a survey, a visual survey mailed out to all property owners in the Heights districts, and that will be a part of taking the temperature about some of the ideas that will be set forth in the December workshop. And we will report in what we're calling a strategy paper to council in February, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. Then following on from there will be a couple of more workshops in looking at that strategy, and then at the draft of the guidelines. And then, of course, there will be the regular adoption process where there will be opportunities through public hearings to comment as well. So this is a starting point for many of you in that respect. In addition to the public workshops, we have we'll be scheduling focus groups. We've had a couple of startup focus groups today with different interest groups, and if you think there's a particular kind of group of people we should be talking to in a smaller meeting, put it on your blue sheet and let us know about that. There will also be an online survey as well as the mailed survey, and again, some city council study sessions. So that first step includes looking at some of the basic principles of historic preservation. And many of you already know this sort of thing, but I just want to touch on it real briefly. Because I think some people believe that preservation means freezing buildings in time, and we understand that that's not the case. That preservation means using historic properties, keeping them in active service for our community and for ourselves. That can mean accommodating change, whether that's new wiring, adding an access ramp, or an addition to add livable space, but while maintaining what are considered the key character-defining features of that building so that it retains its historic significance, retains its integrity as an historic property. So preservation means being able to balance those things, and we need to keep that in mind as we think about writing guidelines for the project. There are some key terms that you have heard and or will hear during the course of this project. One is the concept of historic significance, why an area has value to the community as a part of its heritage. Whoops. Oh, got a heavy thumb here. Let's see, where am I? Here we are. And that is of a district and of a property. That means that enough of the original building has to still be there to be considered historically significant, and a high percentage of contributing buildings need to be in a historic district in order for it to retain its designation. So those are important terms to consider. integrity about the district and the individual resources in terms of retaining enough of their original building fabric, character, details, etc., is important. And then in terms of additions and new construction, the concept of compatibility. What makes something fit in with the existing built environment that we value as the historic district? So integrity, real quickly. We start out with a building that is intact. This is a very modest little cottage, but it retains all of its key features: the windows and their proportions, the character of the door, the shape of the roof, the material, the siding, and the character of the porch are all features that help to define its character. We have many buildings in our historic districts that have had some alterations over time that maybe have diminished some of that character, but we would still consider them to be contributors because they retain enough of their building fabric, enough of that original material and character. There is a point, though, where you pass over the threshold and you no longer retain sufficient integrity to be considered an historic structure. Even though there may be some old building in there in pieces, it has lost its historic significance. And of course, the objective of an historic district is to prevent that from happening while accommodating reasonable change. So in treatment of an historic building, there's a preferred sequence of actions. And it's the old axiom of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Meaning, don't change things that don't need to be changed, but instead keep them in good condition. So the preferred sequence of treatment for a historic building is first, preserve things intact. Keep them well painted, keep them well repaired. Second, though, if they do need repair, to do that first rather than replacing it, because retaining as much of the original building material as possible helps retain that integrity. But if in fact material is beyond repair, then replace it in kind or reconstruct missing details to accurately replicate what's missing, or replace it with a sympathetic interpretation if need be. And then after those actions, to consider compatible alterations, which might be adding that dormer that you need, or adding an additional room to the back or something like that. But that's the preferred sequence of actions. So that shows up in a variety of guidelines. And now these pages are from other projects. They don't necessarily represent the policies that will be set forth for the Houston districts, but they show you a little bit of the visual character and quality that we strive for in being able to convey ideas to the community in ways that are easy to understand. So examples of principles of repairing and preserving key features we know will be an important part of the project. Addressing additions: where, how big, how designed, how connected. The questions of to what extent should an addition blend with the original design, or to what extent should we know where the original house stops and the addition begins. So finding that balance is a topic that's often an issue of consideration. We also know we need to address, of course, infill, new construction, in terms of how it's compatible. That may be how it's sited, but also what its massing is, et cetera. Now, in terms of data analysis, what we've been doing is looking at a lot of information available through the city's geographic information system, which is a powerful tool in getting a basic understanding of development characteristics that exist in the districts. So we've been looking at a variety of variables, such as building year, the size of buildings, et cetera. The staff have worked with us to map those for each of the districts, and we're not presenting these maps tonight, but they will be available online so you can go back and look at the development patterns of your district. So for example, construction year built here is being shown. The lighter colors are the older buildings. The darker colors are the more recent buildings. You can intuitively see here that in the Heights East District, there are blocks that are virtually intact in terms of older buildings, and there are other blocks that have had substantial new construction occurring. We've looked at other variables, such as building size. And so here the progression is the redder buildings, in this case, have the smaller square footage. And as you move into the tan and the dark, they have the higher square footage for for a range of building sizes here. We've also been looking at lot coverage. What percentage of the building footprint covers a certain amount of area of the land of the individual parcels? And so here again you see one of lot coverage, where in this case the yellow and the light blue have the lowest ratios, and as you move up to green, that's sort of middle ground, and then above 50%, which is fairly high, is dark blue. And then also floor area ratio. That's the percentage of overall square footage of a house, not just its footprint, because it includes however many floors may be constructed there, to the size of the lot. So it's related to lot coverage, but it includes basically, it's a surrogate for measuring volume. So floor area ratio is something very interesting to look at. In this case, the blue colors are the lower floor area ratios. They have smaller houses on their lots in proportion to the others. Those that move into the violet and purple range are getting higher. So again, you can see some blocks where there's a consistent pattern, others where there's a mix, others where there's a very different change. Now, you have to compare a lot of those to get a sense of the overall character of places. As a part of that, we're looking at where's the concentration of each of those variables. What's the bell curve, if you will? So in this case, there's a high preponderance of buildings in this particular area that we were studying with a floor area of around 20 to 30%. That is, the square footage is about 20 to 30% of the overall lot size. So that's telling us in that particular area, that's where that concentration of floor area is. Now, we've also been looking at recent trends in terms of analyzing some of the material that's already come in from earlier workshops for the Heights districts, as well as comments that have come in to staff and to other staff members along the way. And we've been assembling that. And some of that material for the Heights districts, you will see some summaries to work with. After a certain point, we're going to be generating some models of alternative development scenarios for additions and infill. You're going to look at some initial ones tonight, but we'll be refining those. And those will be published in a survey that people will be able to comment on to express their opinion about compatibility. This is an example from another survey in which people were commenting on the appropriateness of different building scenarios within a particular context. And that was then reported. Here's just a close-up so you begin to see the percentage responses. So this is after the survey had been returned. And then we can report that to the community and to City Council in terms of what people are feeling. So that we'll begin to have a little bit better of a statistical feel for the sentiment of the different districts and what people are concerned about. Oh boy, man, I'm just going wild. After that analysis, we're going to be developing what we're calling a strategy. That is, what are the key topics that we need to be dealing with? What kind of format for the document is going to work best for the community? What's the level of detail? There's a balance between being general enough so that you're not dictating design solutions and yet being specific enough that everyone understands what the rules are. And finding that balance is something that's very important in the process. And so part of that is determining to what extent should there be some prescriptive standards, that is measurable ones. Should there be a floor area limit for certain places, for example? Or should it be a more qualitative discussion about how something might fit in terms of compatibility? So we will be generating a strategy report early in the year of next year, and as I mentioned, delivering that. It will look at what we consider are some tools in addition to some general guideline principles that I mentioned for rehabilitation. But in terms of additions and new construction, there are different ways to manipulate form or to limit it in ways that can help promote compatibility within the district. So we'll be looking at some of those various tools as a part of that strategy before we actually start writing the design standards and guidelines. We'll be thinking about how it's organized and what the basic chapters are, because if you're dealing with a new building, you don't need to read the chapter about preserving old windows. On the other hand, if you are dealing with renovating your building, the section on windows will be very important, but perhaps not the section related to additions. We work to try to create a visual format that is easy to read, that is consistently structured, that helps everyone understand what the expectations are. And again, will be highly visual, that helps people to understand what some of the principles are. And so in this example of what some of the options are for additions to buildings. Now, the modeling we do, we know the numbers behind these. So when we're showing you these models on the table today, we know how many square feet there are there, we know what the floor area ratio is, we know what the lot coverage is. So as people respond to these, we'll be able to start thinking about numerically what some of those rules might be, if that's the way to go. Others may deal with the articulation of building mass. Some of you have had that experience in the design process in the historic districts of how do you manipulate form of larger buildings to help them fit into existing ones. That brings up the topic of context. And context is defined in the city's preservation ordinance very specifically. It is the second from the bottom illustration here. It is a face of a block on which your lot sits. In this case, the lot is red, and the block facing it. And that is the context to consider as a starting point for compatibility evaluations. There is at the top the overall historic district. But what we've heard a little bit is that maybe in some cases we should consider more than a block, or we should at least think about how does that block compare with others in our district? Is this a unique setting, or is it representative of many other places within the district? So in order to get a better handle on that, we've been developing what we're calling typologies. And that is a description of a certain kind of development pattern that we think exists within the districts. And some of those typologies appear in only portions of a district. And so in some cases tonight, we've generated examples of typologies for maybe, that may have two classifications for one historic district. For some of the others, we think there might be 4 different typologies, if you will. And we'll be explaining that in just a second here as we work to get you started, because that may help us to narrow down the discussion about when is a building of a certain size and character compatible or not. Is it a universal response throughout a district, or is it within that one block context, or is it within this idea of a typology? So that's the quick overview. Now it's time to start giving you guys your assignments.
All right, thank you again. Thanks everybody for coming, and I look forward to seeing you again.